Good morning. This is the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting. This is a regular meeting. It is Tuesday, November 28th, 2023. It is 9:21 a.m. This session is set to go until 12:15. We do have a hard stop at 12:15 today. This is a hybrid meeting. We're at 3000 Pacific Avenue, room 110. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. In the boardroom, we have Vice Chair Ty Menser as well as Commissioner Gary Edwards. We have Commissioner-elect Emily Klaus, as well as Interim County Manager Robin Campbell and Assistant County Manager Rob Gelder. And today, before we get started on our agenda, there's been, we're going to go ahead and move some things around. Vice Chair Ty Menser has to be excused at 10. Is that correct?
That's correct.
For the State Building Code Council. So we will be picking up with the salary commission recommendations on the commissioner's item first.
Okay. So then let's just go right then to item. We don't need to make any formal change in the order of items.
I don't. I think you can take these agenda items in any order and don't need to take a vote on formally changing the order of the agenda.
Okay, then let's go to item 8.1, because this item does require a decision and I might not be available when we get to that. I'm assuming I will not be here when we get to that portion of the agenda if we were to go in order. So the item is to review and potentially move forward the recommendations from the Salary Commission. That's correct?
Yes, that is correct. So you have an email in your packet from Ruth Elder, which reports out the action taken by the Salary Commission. The Salary Commission has set the salaries for county commissioners at $11,630 per month, which is an annual salary of $139,560 a year. The Salary Commission has also made recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on the salaries for other elected officials in the county. And as you know, the Salary Commission makes a recommendation to the board, but the board actually sets the salaries of the assessor, clerk, coroner, treasurer, auditor, prosecuting attorney, and sheriff. As you can see in the report from the Salary Commission, the commission has recommended to the Board of County Commissioners that the salary for the assessor, clerk, coroner, and treasurer be set the same as county commissioners at $139,560 a year. That the salary for the auditor be set at $141,132 per year. That the prosecuting attorney be set at $223,908, and this is in accordance with the state, which sets the prosecutor's salary to be on par with Superior Court judges. And then they recommend that the sheriff's salary be set at $174,360. So that is the proposal before the board. You can accept the recommendations from the Salary Commission as recommended, or you can make any changes that you see fit, except to your own salaries. The Salary Commission sets your salaries and you have no latitude in changing that.
Could I just get a clarification on that? On that particular point, could you explain the reason that the commissioners do not have a say in their own salary?
You know,
I think it's an ordinance or something. It's not state law, is
I
it?
do believe that there is well, there are state laws at play as well, but I believe that the county ordinance is for the salary commission to set your salary. That way, you have no say in what your salary is. And then they recommend the others. And I
And
do
then-
believe that that's by ordinance.
Maybe for clarification, the public, you know, I want the public to know, because I'm taking this somewhere as we move forward.
Sure.
But the commissioners also do not select the salary commission. That is a lottery pick somehow, so we don't generally even know who's on other than the names come forward and we act on those names, and I think that comes from the auditor. But I'm not
So
sure of that.
most of the positions are selected in that fashion, the at-large positions. The auditor's office does a random draw from voters and asks if they are willing to serve, and if so, forwards those names to the board to approve. However, there are a few positions on the salary commission where the person serving is required to have a certain skill set or
Qualifications,
background,
like
yep.
a law degree
An
or
attorney, there is a seat for an HR specialist. I think there's one other that I'm not remembering offhand. And we don't have our salary
I
commission
guess where I'm
folks
going
here.
with that is it's a bit removed from the commission itself.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it is at arm's length. The person who supports the position on a day-to-day basis reports to the Director of Human Resources, however, operates independently in support of this commission. And that's how she operates. So the board does not have influence any more than any other official.
And then one more clarification from me, it's, what are we being asked to do right now in this meeting?
So we are asking that you give direction to staff on the salaries for the elected officials, other than the Board of County Commissioners.
And then it would go on to a Tuesday afternoon meeting.
That's right. We're asking for a decision from the board today so that we can prepare the resolution that will be on your December 12th afternoon agenda. So this isn't the final vote, but it's enables us to prepare the appropriate documents. So, I do, before you get into discussion, I would like to distribute to you a little bit of information. This is information that was shared with the Salary Commission.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Share my hand for which it's in. There you go, you're welcome. So this
Is this information available via email, Robin?
I don't have it via email, but Jamie will scan it in and send it to you. So this information, was given to the Salary Commission while they were debating the amounts to set. And one of the, or part of the discussion was, what have the COLAs been for employees and elected officials in the past? So the first item on this worksheet goes back to 2008. And you can see the COLAs each year given to employees, the amounts given to elected officials, the sheriff and the prosecutor. What you see in 2008 and 2009 is an attempt to bring elected officials into parity with, so it becomes comparable with what employees were earning at the time. However, beginning in 2010, there were a number of years, 3 years out of 14 where employees did not receive a raise. However, elected officials, there were 8 years where elected officials did not receive a raise. And for the prosecutor, a few years, 5 years. But what the point of this table is there were quite a few years where elected officials did not receive a raise, and that caused their salaries to go down compared to the staff that they oversee. So the second item on this page is a comparison of elected officials' salaries to similar positions or to chief deputies or similar position within their organization. And what you clearly see here is the elected official is pretty consistently, with the exception of the prosecutor, paid less than their chief deputy or, for example, the county manager, the undersheriff. The elected official is paid less than that person. So that was taken into consideration. The other item, and I'm going to get back to this last one, but if you turn the page, you'll see a comparison to comparable counties. These counties are the ones that Thurston generally uses when looking at employee salaries. And again, with the exception of Benton County, you see that Thurston is lagging behind your peers. So all of this was taken into consideration by the Salary Commission. But where they spent a lot of their time was talking about what an appropriate COLA would be in terms of a percentage. So they really became centered on what percent was good. They talked about 7%, 3%, and they landed on 5.8% for commissioners and most of the elected officials, 7% for the auditor and the sheriff, and then again, the prosecutor was in line with the state rules. So I wanted you to have all of this information as you make a determination. And I would also like to make a recommendation to you that, with the exception of the auditor, that you accept the recommendation of the Salary Commission. And when it comes to the auditor, I recommend to you that the auditor's salary be set the same as the assessor, the clerk, the coroner, and the treasurer. My reasoning for doing that is, number one, if you look at comparable counties, you see that the auditor does not earn more than county commissioner in any of the comparable counties or their peers. And you also, if you look now at the bottom of page 1, I've quoted an RCW here, or rather listed the salaries that are called out. RCW 3617.020 Part 2 sets the salaries of counties with a population between 210,000 and 1 million. Now you'll see this is not a monthly salary. This is intended to be an annual salary, but this law was last updated in 1973. So I am not suggesting that the annual salary of the auditor be $17,600, but I am showing you these amounts to show that the state of Washington has set at a minimum the salaries of the auditor, the clerk, the treasurer, the assessor, and the coroner at an equal amount. And they have recognized that the sheriff and the legislative authority of a county, meaning the county commissioners, is set slightly higher. So for these reasons, I recommend that the auditor's salary be set the same as the clerk, the treasurer, the assessor, and the coroner. And that otherwise you follow the recommendation of the salary commission. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions or comments? Commissioner Edwards?
I'm gonna have comments, but I don't think that I have any more questions per se.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions for me at this time. But I know that there's comments, so
Okay.
I don't know. Do you have questions?
I don't. I'm just gonna grab Commissioner-elect Klaus because she'll eventually be voting on this when it comes over the board. Any questions for staff?
No questions right now. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Edwards, go ahead.
For comments?
Sure.
Well, I've never made any friends on what I'm about to say, but I want to be consistent. I was the elected sheriff here for 20 years, and I never asked for a raise in that period of time. I always knew when I filed for office what the salary was. I've kind of carried that same philosophy with me all the way through. And so, other than a cost of living with the CPA that we use for all of our calculations, I'm just opposed to increasing salaries of elected officials when they're in office, when they are the incumbent in that office. And when the person decides they want to run for that office, they know exactly what the salary is. They do their term in office. Then when it comes time to sign up, if the salary commission or the designated body, because this could be changed through an ordinance, wants to change the way it's done, that would be the time to change it. So that the new person signing up for office then knew what the salary was gonna be and was gonna be there for 4 years at that salary, so we didn't have to tinker with it. And I've been, like I say, I've been consistent on this my whole elected time in office. And sometimes when I can't make it to Ruth's hearings on the salary commission, I ask her to pull the letter out and refer to that as my testimony if there's a conflict. So this is nothing new for me, and it's just my own position that I feel is we need to have a better way. I know Robin has explained that we're pretty well removed from the process. That happened to me too, ma'am.
Too
Anyway,
short for you.
so that's kind of the reason that I am where I am on this particular topic.
So I have a question for you though,
Yes,
because
sir.
I've heard, I understand where you're at, but your philosophy doesn't fit with the system. So in terms of what we're being asked to do today, because we can't even, what's your position on these proposals? Because we can't the salary commission sets our salary. And so you're gonna vote against?
I was gonna vote against everything because it kind of goes against what I've been preaching my whole term in office. And I've only been a commissioner for 7 years, so I haven't had a lot of chance to make those changes. But if you'll review the votes in the past, I'm pretty well consistent on that issue. I think we need to do something different. And we've argued that in the past. I just have never been successful. So it's the democratic process, and hopefully someday it'll be a campaign issue, maybe for someone, not for me. And that's kind of, so I just like to point out where I'm coming from. I respect everybody's position on it. It's just, I think it'd be so much better for the public to know that when a person signs up for office, they know that's what it's gonna be. And there will be no, and I'm not alleging shenanigans, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that at all. But they will know that it's a set salary all the way through, no matter what they do in office, it's gonna stay the same. So, that's all.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So if we were to say no on this, right? Seeing that we don't have kind of a say on our salary, does that mean like ours would go through and then no one else would get it? Or
Yes.
we would just be saying no to everything?
If you were to say no to the increases that are proposed by the salary commission, it would only be to those for the other elected officials. The salary commission has set your salary. It would go through with the higher amount. You don't have a say, and we've had this conversation with Elizabeth. According to Elizabeth, you cannot say no to the increase for commissioners.
So where does that put you?
Emily's got her hand up.
I really do think that at some point, we should change that ordinance, because it's set through ordinance, not this board or any recent board, but a past board made this determination. For whatever reason, I wasn't in on all those discussions, but I do think that there's a better way to do it. Now, if you wanted me to lay that out right now, I don't have that ready to lay out right now, but I just think there's a better way that we could do this and take it, and possibly what we could do, okay, we could work on creating a new ordinance immediately. I know we can't do it today. There's a process we'd have to go through. We'll have 5 commissioners shortly, I think in a few hours. And, maybe we can make an agenda adjustment. So the first thing we do in the first part of the year or something would be change it. And, then we could set our salaries similar the first part of next year. I don't know
So
if all
we
this is
can-
gonna fit.
We can
But-
certainly start to review this topic early next year, maybe starting in February. Get some ideas of what other counties in the state do. Bring Elizabeth into the conversation to ask what's legal in accordance with state law. And look at the topic. But right now, what you have in front of you, given the timing, is the salary commission has set your salary. You do not have a say on that. And we are asking you to set the salaries of the others.
We're doing something different this time around than what we haven't done before, and that is maybe making a decision to adjust the salary commission's recommendation.
You adjusted it.
So that has been done in the past.
Yeah, we've done that in the past, but because of that, to make sure that happened, maybe I'd vote for it, to get the darn thing through, and then we could move on towards this adjustment and have another discussion down the road early next year. Because I think that the auditors, I see merit to county manager's explanation on what she's recommending.
Got a question from Commissioner Lake?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say that I actually agree with Commissioner Edwards' perspective on this. If it were up to us, I would also vote not to raise our salaries. I think that given the fight that our staff have had to go through to raise their salaries, it just wouldn't be fair for us to increase all of the salaries of the elected officials. When we were elected, we knew what the salaries would be. I also have a clarifying question. I understand that we would not be able to adjust the salary commission's recommendation on our own salaries, but will the salary commission have the opportunity to revise their recommendations if we were to vote not to raise the other salaries?
That is a good question. The salary commission has made this decision. I don't know if the board were to reject their recommendation, if they would then reconvene. I've not seen that done before, and I would need to ask Elizabeth.
Okay.
So I can get a legal opinion on that. What I will tell you is, should the board formally reject this recommendation and ask for a revised recommendation, it could not happen by the end of this year, which would delay the salaries of the other officials going into effect. We're asking you to make a decision now so that these increases would be effective January 1. If you were to delay that, then whatever happens would be delayed.
Okay, and then a follow-up question, would that also mean that the salary commission would not have the opportunity even before like December 12th, when we might have our last chance to approve or reject their final recommendation?
So the salary commission is subject to the Open Public Meetings Act. And because they have now adjourned for the year, they would need to announce a special meeting. We'd have to gather the members and see if they could meet again. It could be done, but it would possibly be a challenge to get a quorum together, and then
Okay,
away we go.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
could I make a comment?
He's still,
I didn't know you had your hand up, sir.
oh, no.
I'm chairing, essentially I passed the baton.
Oh,
It's okay.
oh,
I just wanted to say for myself that if we, because before I lose the thread, if we do what Commissioner Edwards and the county manager laid out, calling Elizabeth, going through all the things, I would just remind the board that, you know, maybe third time would be charm, but we've done that exercise in just my 5 years, we've twice had work session, we brought in lawyers brought in the memos and all the different ways, we discussed it, and none of us were quite happy with the salary commission process, but we couldn't land on another process that didn't have its own set of greater pitfalls. Now, I've heard some new ideas since then, so I am willing to entertain the conversation again, because there's a couple of new structures that I've heard about that maybe that's the magic formula. But for myself, this is the process, and I don't actually agree. I think the county manager made a great argument about the auditor and this historic. I don't really agree with all the decisions made, but this is why we set this process up. So I am personally going to just support what the salary commission did. That's why they're there. And then we can, next year, I'm happy to talk about some of the new ideas I've heard about other structures and other mechanisms. But this is our mechanism, and I'm not going to make a motion to amend the salary commission's work myself. Commissioner Edwards.
I guess just for the new members coming up in a couple hours, I'd like to have them know that we've also had problems with quorum, with obtaining a quorum in the past on the salary commission. It isn't like anybody's knocking down the door to get on that body so that, you know, they can come and do something. So I'm just hoping there's a better way to do it, and I might acquiesce to my seatmates and vote for the darn thing to get it through again, but I sure wish we would do something so we could, I don't know, get to a fairer process. I just, I don't know, Commissioner Kraus said that, you know, our employees went through so much, and they did, and they didn't get adequate I don't think they got adequate compensation this time around, but we did what we can do with the money we had. So I'd just like to see this, we'd get a situation where the CPA that applies to them applies to us possibly, or something like that. But this bumping, these huge bumps, it went on years ago too. I watched the same thing happen when I left as sheriff. You know, things changed.
I mean,
So
it's just,
that's the history of it.
it's a conundrum because if you just mentioned the CPA that applies to the employee contracts applying to us, but that's exactly, you're saying keep
Right.
the salary the same.
If that was the, I mean,
So you
if that
wouldn't
was
get
it,
any of
with the
those.
exception of the CPA,
CPI. Just
what?
CPI.
CPI,
versus
CPA.
our
Well, maybe a
salaries.
CPA would review the CPI.
They might.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Anyway, I don't wanna belabor this thing too bad, but we do need to do something.
I would also mention that there are vacancies on the commission. I believe that all of the at-large seats have been filled at this point, but the seats for specialists, in particular the HR specialist, is empty. So the board has not taken action to fill those seats.
Maybe the first part of the year, we could take this on as an issue and see if we could get it fixed. Okay?
No, yeah, I'm,
Yep, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
this was such a tough budget year, and it was very hard for our employees, so I'm right there with you all on this. There was such a hard time to get the salary commission to even meet, though. It's been 2 years for them to even have these past 3 meetings. I think it's been 3 meetings that they've had, and it's been a variety of issues on the reasons that they have not met. That, for me at this point, I'm just like, let's just get this through. Not to say that and next year, if there is a conversation, if we're going through this process again, then maybe that's, again, having this conversation about maybe aligning ourselves with, but at this point, I believe they've made a recommendation, and it's kind of, it is what it is kind of situation. I know it happened at the executive level as well in the state, right, where the state auditor, I believe, Secretary of State, got a bigger bump, right? But I think it's pretty much aligned itself over the years. So for me, at the end of the day, it took so long for the salary commission to even meet that let's just get it through.
Yeah, I can't argue that. The whole thing needs to be fixed.
The whole thing needs to be fixed.
I think that's my
and
argument, so I don't know, if like Commissioner Collins had something to say.
I'm right there with you.
I would just say, to kind of reiterate the point, I do think that the process is unfair as it is currently. And respectfully, Commissioner Mejia, to your point on it is what it is, I believe it is what we approve or reject. It doesn't have to be what the Salary Commission has recommended. And I strongly believe that it would be unfair to push this through for convenience or because of the availability of the Salary Commission. I mean, we're talking 6-7% increases. And then we're also considering trying to revise the process next year. And I just think that if we're considering revising the process, then we should also hold off on such large salary increases until we know that the process is fair.
I might ask the county, we don't have an attorney here right now, but near as you could tell, is there any reason if we just sat on this for a month or, until the first part of next year that we could make our recommendation to move forward with whatever the Salary Commission said or not, or recall that ordinance that's in place now that puts the Salary Commission in the situation that it's in and us in the situation that we're in? We just need to revamp that ordinance because we're following an ordinance that the county board put in at some prior date. And I think it was around 2007 or 6 or somewhere in there. I really don't. I'm not sure.
The ordinance has been there for some time.
Yeah.
I would need to, I haven't recently reviewed the ordinance, and I would want to read it before, I believe that you do not have to take action at this time. And you could delay, and I see Tara nodding.
But
It's
would our salaries
completely
still
up to
go
you.
through? Like, that's the
Your
thing.
salaries will go through on
And
January
that's
1.
the fact that makes me uncomfortable if we're gonna be talking about fairness, right? Like, our salary increase that the salary commission recommended are going to go through. And while we decide the other process, right, we're gonna be delaying
That would be correct.
the increases for the other electeds. And, you know, there was a public hearing for this. There was a public process that the salary commission went through where people could go in and comment on whether they agreed with these increases or not. This is the recommendation that this community body has put forward. I mean, whether I personally agree with it or not, I feel like at this time, it's what they've been put forward. I do not feel comfortable with our increase going forward. And then we're going to delay everyone else's because we're deciding on a process.
And then we've got this experience, we've got the example of the prosecutor who's going from 208 to 224, and that's not based on, that's based on some formula. Based on-
Yes, from the state of Washington. The state of Washington sets the prosecutors, they set the judge's salary, and then the state pays half of the prosecutor's salary, that is equal to half of the Superior Court salary, and then the county makes up
So if
the
we don't,
difference. So
if we
it's
don't take
basically
action,
set.
our salaries go into place. Does the prosecutors go into place?
No, it would wait as well, and the county's share would just be less until the board took action.
I have to excuse myself to Building Code Council. My final thought is just that, you know, unfairness, I understand that when we walked through every different possible structure, there was an argument about unfairness. The intent of this is to be fair. The intent is to let a community body of citizens take in all the information and keep it non-political, away from all the political stuff that we have to manage when we make decisions about something. So the intent was good. Whether it's working well or not is a matter of opinion. But until we thoroughly discuss all the ins and outs of all the other structures and decide as a body that one is better, superior to this, I'm gonna respect the work of the Salary Commission all the way down to the auditor, where, you know, I don't necessarily agree with that decision, but that's where I'm at, because we tried this twice before and failed. And until I'm confident that we've got a fair process, I think this is a fair process, whatever that's worth. But I need to excuse myself, so I'll pass the baton to Madam.
Do you know, maybe we could ask council, this is probably, you're gonna hear me harp about this quite a bit, about having an attorney here at our meetings, because we have these type of issues that come up where we never seem to have an answer. Oh, that whole nother topic, but, is there any reason that we can't void an ordinance? Can we void an ordinance that is in place and just, as a body, say, well, we're gonna vote this ordinance out of existence, and we'll bring it up next year, so we don't have to follow an ordinance created by this body. I've been told all along that the ordinances that we create when we do certain things, legislative actions, that we do have the authority to change that. Well, I don't know what change it means.
You could rescind an ordinance, because you established them, you could certainly rescind one. I don't know what rescinding that ordinance at this time would do regarding the action that the Salary Commission has taken with respect to your salaries. I would need to ask Elizabeth to attend. So may I also say, we're seeking guidance so that we can prepare the resolution for December 12th. You don't vote until December 12th. So today you're giving direction to staff, and then you could,
Okay.
final direction won't come until
So
the vote
maybe
is
you
before
can
you.
come back with a little more
I
discussion
will
on this
certainly
topic.
be asking
That would be
Elizabeth,
fine.
and she will want to advise you in executive session, and
Well,
we'll set one of
whatever it
those up.
takes.
Yep.
But we'll have 5 commissioners sitting there when that comes.
Yes,
and
we
we'll
will.
get 5 commissioners to vote on it, because we're gonna
Yes, we
move
will.
forward with 5 commissioners. So I think it's just a better way to go myself. Let's get right to the nitty gritty quick and try to fix something.
So we need to know what to put in the resolution.
Yep, so,
So-
is that okay, ma'am, with you? I
Yeah.
mean,
No,
See,
I'm,
we've got a little time yet.
yeah, I think maybe a session to kind of discuss this would be good, with Elizabeth and kind of see what the proposals are. I mean, if we're gonna delay, I feel like we need to delay on all of them. I do not feel comfortable with ours moving forward and no one else's moving forward. I feel like that's just, it's not.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's an uncomfortable place to be.
It's, and it's not, it just, for me, it's just not.
So in terms of the resolution to be drafted, I guess the decision then, or direction that still needs to be clarified is whether or not to incorporate the salary commission's recommendation relative to the auditor, or to.
Well, no, the whole thing, and what we're referring to, I think now, and I'm referring to, could the ordinance be voided without creating another ordinance and just wait? We won't get any raise, nobody will get a raise, as far as the elected officials
County
until
didn't-
next year sometime.
Yeah, if the
If
county
we do,
didn't have
maybe.
an ordinance, then it would revert to state law, but again, the salary commission has already taken what they termed a final action. And that's where we need clarity from Elizabeth.
Sure, whether we can even nullify it at this point.
Yeah,
We
because
maybe
in the
not.
past, when we've had these conversations, she has said there's no way to reject your own salary increase. But I
No.
don't recall a conversation about nullifying the ordinance.
And it's, only fair that the new commissioners hear kind of what we've heard up until now, because we're
course.
gonna act on that under their watch.
The likelihood for rescinding, there still has to be a public process for the rescinding of an existing ordinance. So that would itself would require a certain amount of notification, and
Public
whether
hearing.
public hearing and whether or not that actually would, be able to occur this year is not possible given our. current-
This is gonna sound-
You'd
this-
have to, we'd almost have to take action immediately to be able to publish it timely. They would waive the 20 days to be a 10-day notice, and there's a whole lot of things that would have to happen.
So then, I heard from Commissioner Menser for just to present the salary commission recommendation as is. I'm in support of that, are you in support of that? And then on December 12th, we'll have a conversation.
Well, we'll
Before
have to
then,
make-
before then,
yeah,
we'll have a
before then.
conversation with Elizabeth to see what it is that we can do, whether we can.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
wanna move this thing forward and get it fixed. That's my ultimate goal. I'm not saying I'm gonna win this battle, cause I've been fighting it.
Well, I don't think we're gonna
Since
fix it before
86.
December 12th,
No.
but, at least it'll give us some guidance whether it is something that we move forward as a package together or not at all. Again,
Well, it sounds like we have,
if ours are moving forward, then I'm going to be going with the salary commission recommendation. If there's a way that we can also delay ours, it's the same as the rest of the electeds, then I think then we can have another conversation about
Okay.
the process and we can go into those details, but at this time,
but
Okay.
got some questions to run by Elizabeth, it sounds like. And does Ruth have a separate attorney for the salary commission itself? I mean, Elizabeth is our attorney, but
I'm assuming that she works with Jane Futterman.
Jane does that?
Yeah, Jane does HR
Okay.
topics, yep.
so does
Check
Jay
it with Maria and Tara.
so does Jay need to be involved in this conversation?
Well, the board has heard from Elizabeth each time we've
Okay.
brought this in the past. If she needs assist from Jane, she'll bring her in.
Okay,
And we're seeing both of them tomorrow morning. We could certainly ask about this.
okay.
Thank you for indulging me.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
With that, we'll move on to the review of the Board of County Commissioner meeting for our meeting of November 28th, 2023. We'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Menser. Approval of the Tuesday, November 28th, 2023 agenda. Then at 2:05, we're going to be having a presentation, and this is from the Thurston County Racial Equity Action Plan.
Okay, here we go. So this item, is a presentation of the county's new, racial equity action plan. Dee will present the plan, and the board has moved this from a commissioner's item to a presentation, because we would like to welcome members of the Racial Equity Council and the public to participate. And this will be an action item rather than simply a proclamation.
And there will be a couple of slides that I'll assist with.
Be a couple what?
Slides.
Oh, okay.
Is Stevie going to be?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, she will be here.
And has she confirmed which members of the council will be present?
I have not heard.
Let me ask a question on that, ma'am.
Go ahead, sir.
The last time we had a briefing on this topic, it seemed like she had not been able to fill those positions for that council. Is that still the case? I guess, are we premature if we do this before she gets those positions filled?
Excuse me, the board took action last week
To fill a
to
couple.
fill a number
Yeah,
of
there was like
chairs.
3, was there 5?
Yeah.
Okay, good enough, okay.
And Devi just popped up. Devi?
Hello.
Hello. Okay, so we're talking right now about the Racial Equity Action Plan. Anything you need to add to this? Who's attending?
I know some of the members of the council are attending. Some will, I think a couple will join virtually. Hopefully Dr. Jackson. I think maybe Juliet Lawson Hall. Evelyn might be in person. And then a couple of the new members, I think will also be attending in person. I've also heard back from some representatives from the League of Women Voters and the Equity Coalition.
Thank you. Okay, questions? Commissioner-elect Klaus?
No questions.
No questions? Okay, thank you, Devi.
Thanks.
Okay, next is an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
I don't believe there are any updates that Robin will be providing this afternoon.
Okay. Any questions? Commissioner-elect Klaus?
No questions.
No questions.
Okay. Moving on to consent items A through H. Item 3A. The first item is the approval of the voucher list for the week of October 30th.
This item has been reviewed and no expenses related to the atrium were identified, so it is on your consent agenda today.
Thank you.
Okay.
No
Questions?
questions.
Okay, moving on to item 3B, Community Planning and Economic Development. Interlocal agreement with the City of Yelm for permit processing of a stormwater pond associated with a coffee stand.
Brett is here today if the board has any questions, but as well as Josh. But basically, the board reviewed this as a item last week, and it would be an agreement to, as the coffee stand, it will be situated within the City of Yelm. They have need to deal with their stormwater requirements that happen to be in the unincorporated portion. And so to simplify the permitting process, this would agree to allow the City of Yelm to do the entirety of it.
Brett, anything you need to add? No? Okay. Questions? Commissioner-elect Klaus?
No questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, item 3C, Community Planning and Economic Development is the review of request for plat alteration.
And Brett is still here, as well as Josh, but this item came before the board last week, and even the proponents The property owners were here as well in attendance, but if you'll recall, this is a 12-lot subdivision that requires a plat amendment that to be able to situate the dwelling and any other external building structures on that adheres to the overall principle of the plat when it was created, but the homeowners actually did the due diligence for RCW and got approval from a majority, I think all but maybe one of the property owners agreed to the plat alteration. So therefore it comes to the board as an administrative action.
I might point out, but nobody objected either.
No.
So, okay.
And I don't know if Josh has or Brett have any additional information on this one.
Thank you, Assistant County Manager. Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. I would just carry on that one last point. The final person that did not provide confirmation provided no information, so we presume that they don't care one way or the other.
Yep.
Any other questions from commissioners on that topic?
No questions from me.
Questions, Commissioner-elect Klaus?
No questions.
No questions from you? No questions from me,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then item 3D, which is Community Planning and Economic Development, it's the hearing examiner pro tem RFP.
As the board will recall from agenda review last week, Jeremy Davis is in the room and can speak to this topic, but this is an item that basically is going out for a request for proposal to select a pro tem hearing examiner, basically an individual that would provide that service when our usual and accustomed hearing examiner is not available as capacity requires.
Okay. Questions, Commissioner-elect Klaus?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, item 3E. 3E from Human Resources, and item 3F is the adoption of non-represented salaries effective December 1st, 2023, and the one-time longevity bonus for non-represented employees.
So the board will recall last week during a review, we did review item E, which was specifically addressing the resolution adopting basically the salary charts effective December 1st, 2023. Item F is a new item that I think that we did not have a chance to talk about the specifics last week, and so the experts are here.
So that item is a longevity bonus. So one of the things after we settled our collective bargaining agreements, we agreed to a slightly higher COLA. And state law prohibits retro pay for non-represented employees. And so one of the desires of the Board of County Commissioners was to somehow recognize our non-represented employees. And so we developed a longevity bonus concept, and it's based on years of service. So if you've been here more than 5 years, there's a certain amount, like 3, 2, 3, and 4 is one amount, and then under a year is a separate amount. And so that's what's before you today.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner-elect Klaus?
No questions.
Commissioner Edwards? No questions for me, thank you. Okay. Item,
Excuse me, ma'am. There's 2 Fs.
there's
there.
2 Fs, yeah. So this will be item 3G from Public Defense, a resolution establishing positions for Defense Attorney 2 and Paralegal 1 in the Thurston County Pay and Classification Pay Plan.
Thank you, Commissioner. These positions are 2 new positions. They are connected to a grant that the county has received from the Washington Office of Civil Legal Aid. And the attorney and support staff that is included here will be providing relief, working with clients to provide relief from legal financial obligation debt, expunge or vacate criminal records, and will be represented in civil forfeit proceedings. The grant fully funds these two positions, and there will be a resolution or a proviso in the budget that says that these positions will last as long as the grant is available to fund them.
Thank you. And Patrick's not here. Okay, questions, Commissioner-elect Klaus?
No questions.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
No questions for me, but I do want to thank Patrick for his work on items such as this. He's been very proactive and trying to get additional funding that he can from the state to kind of help ease the burden that his staff is facing. So just kudos to Patrick and his staff on this item. I know that this will help with their caseloads. Okay, item H, from the Sheriff's Office, a resolution reclassifying position, Sheriff's Office Systems Administrator to a Financial Operations Assistant.
Yes, this item is a reclassification, and the sheriff was with us last week to explain that this position is timely and should be changed now in order to provide appropriate support to the office.
Anything you'd like to add to this item?
Yeah, so I just want to follow up on the timeliness of that. So I think it was mentioned last week, I apologize that I wasn't here last week, but that we are not able to take on additional grants. Because of that, I do not want to put the sheriff's office in a situation where we cannot adequately manage grants due to staffing capacity. We do have one individual that is on a list to be hired, so our staff have to go through backgrounds. This individual's also gone through a polygraph, so she is ready to hire. She is looking for a job. The next FOA position in the public safety tax phase-in starts in June. So if we wait until June, I can guarantee you she's gonna have a job. That will put us out probably at least another year before we could hire a person into an FOA position. So there's a time sensitivity to this. If we wait, she's gonna have another job.
Chief Thompson, I thought with the financial, with this position, the one that we approved, it would become available on January 1st with the public safety tax?
That is what we were structuring, yes.
No, that is not. So the money starts coming in June, and we have a request with all the positions starting to phase in, starting in June.
So the board can approve something sooner than that, and that is their intent.
But how can you pay for it out of public safety tax when the money's not
The
there?
money won't be coming in, but the position will be effective immediately in January, and the board is giving you authorization to hire. So that is a conversation that we should have offline. Yeah.
I'm just not understanding how you
So-
could pay for it when there's no money there.
Right.
That's the challenge. So, we still would like to continue forward with this.
Right,
position
and
switch.
the, kind of the, place where the board said, of course, let's go ahead, is I believe that the financial position costs less than the systems administrator,
About
so there is no concern financially going forward with this reclass at this time.
No problem, I'm good.
Questions?
Can you remind me what the salary difference is between the two positions?
About 48,000,
Okay, thank you.
less, I should say.
Thank you.
Obviously.
And then I asked this question last week, Chief Thompson, but I'll ask it again since you weren't here. And then that other position, right, you're reclassifying this one, but the second position that got approved through the public safety tax in June, that will still be part of that first phase approach.
Yes.
Yeah, this position is basically to deal with the 18 years of adding of positions. We've added 49 positions over the last 18 years. The budget's increased by 192%. In 2018, we added the Narcotics Task Force, which is a $500,000 budget with numerous federal grants. We keep taking on this additional work, and we're just at a breaking point. You're seeing that with every office and department. It's not unique to finance in the sheriff's office. So we just need to shore up that risk that is going on, so.
Thank you. Okay, the next item 3I, is the request for proposal issuance and awarding of contract for mental health services for law enforcement staff.
Also, as you heard last week, this item is to provide specialized services to sheriff and sheriff deputies for mental health, and I would turn it over to Chief Carter to fill in the blanks on this.
Yeah, so we're just asking to go out to RFP for mental health services that you guys already approved on. I could specify the mental health services that we're requesting, or we're just looking for approval for move forward with the process.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions, thank you.
Questions? I do have a question. We approved this, did we approve this through general fund or through the public safety tax?
It's general fund.
I believe this is general fund. I'd have to.
But it's reimbursements from LNI, from cost savings on LNI injuries and long-term.
Nicole popped
Oh,
up.
okay.
Yes, that is correct. It is on, in the general fund.
Okay, it's LNI reimbursements. Thank you.
Yes.
I was just trying to remember.
Yeah, with these services, we're mitigating like long-term injury around post-traumatic stress disorder. So thereby decreasing our LNI.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to department items, 4A from the Commissioner's Office. Do we need to remove this item?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so item 4A is stricken and we'll be seeing it possibly on December 12th. I do, maybe this is an offline conversation for us, so I'll on that item. Community Planning and Economic Development, item 5A, it's the adoption of the 2023 Thurston County Comprehensive Plan amendments.
This item is moving the docket items. You have had many briefings, as has the Planning Commission. There have been public hearings on these items. These are a variety of things that the board has given direction to move forward as the annual amendment of your comprehensive plan. And these have to be moved in as a group. You can only take one action each year to amend the comprehensive plan. And this is an up or down vote. So we're not able to disaggregate these items, if you will, into multiple actions. You need to take one single action. And we have Maya on the screen who can answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, Maya, anything you would like to add?
No, nothing to add at this time. I am available with Amelia Schwartz and Leah Davis to answer any questions you have. And this afternoon, I'll give an overview of the preliminary direction we received from the board on each of the individual items, which is also included and broken down in the resolution for the record.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Klaus?
I don't have any questions. I have some comments, but I'll wait.
No questions. We've had plenty of discussion about this.
Okay.
Thank you.
I really want to thank Maya, Leah, Andrew, Amelia, really for all of your hard work during this year. Looking at this huge list of things that we got accomplished, and even though none of, some of these decisions were not unanimous, right? It was a lot of conversations that went into them, I know I had several meetings with staff, so, I could have follow-up on several of the discussions that we would have in the boardroom, and want to thank all of you for really all of your hard work, getting these items through the planning commission, getting them through this whole public process. You guys have just done such an outstanding job this year, and so just really wanted to thank you. Because as I'm looking at all the items that we're getting to accomplish this year, it's really just because of the hard work that all of you have done on this, so. Do you wanna?
Yes, just first like to echo what you're saying about all the work that the staff has put into this process. I think that that's absolutely incredible. I know that this is a very comprehensive plan, no pun intended. I do have some concerns about the Lacey Joint Plan, however, and would appreciate a bit more time to digest what has gone on here. I noticed the unanimous decision by the Planning Commission to not approve the low-density consolidation component of this plan. And this is concerning to me, particularly after the discussion we just had on the Salary Commission's recommendations and the strong decision to move forward with their recommendations, because that's why they are there. And I believe we should consider that same thought process when talking about what the Planning Commission has recommended. So I would like a little bit more time to speak with folks and kind of understand what's going on with this and why it was unanimously shot down.
Leah, go ahead. You know my thoughts on this.
It's really difficult to say what was in the planning commissioners' minds when that vote occurred and they shot it down. The number one thing that I think is important is that we had barely a quorum, and you have to have a majority of the appointed commissioners vote to get something to move forward. And I think that played a role. I think that they also said, if I recall, some commissioners said that with the 2045 comprehensive plan updates coming and potential zoning changes, they didn't want to change the zone, all of those zones at this time, but they wanted to wait to see what happened in the 2045. And they were concerned about housing affordability and how that's going to impact the zoning designations in 2045. Those were the reasons that I recall during the Planning Commission process.
Okay, thank you.
If I could jump in just a little bit and correct me if I have any of the details wrong, but this was also about trying to bring that Lacey sub-area plan up to and achieve some consistency with how the city of Lacey is actually doing their land use, tying it back to the most recent comprehensive plan of 2016 or
2003.
2003.
Oh,
2016
yeah,
for
I'm
Lacey.
sorry.
Yes, so, right, that was our last sub-area or joint plan. But to try to bring it in consistency with the Lacey's 2016 plan, knowing that as we move into these further conversations over the next couple of years relative to our comprehensive plan and achieving those housing goals, that we will have an opportunity to adopt our comprehensive plan, achieve those goals, and then revisit this joint plan with the city of Lacey to achieve those goals in the out years.
I'm sorry, just one more thing. Ashley Rye, Community Planning Manager. The planning commissioners did voice a lot of concerns around affordable housing. And what's interesting about the zoning consolidation is that the city of Lacey went through the whole zoning consolidation process because it was a recommendation in their housing action plan as one way to achieve more affordable housing. And so I think when you sort of run the numbers for that zoning consolidation, it would actually result in at least accommodation of additional housing units, even within the UGA, than is currently there today. And then, of course, with the comprehensive plan update, that'll be another opportunity to take a look at it.
I would also mention that the county has an agreement with the cities that states that once the cities update their plans, that the county will come into alignment in the UGAs. So this does bring the county's plan into alignment in accordance with the agreement that we have with the city.
Okay, thank you.
There are three memoranda of understanding dating back 85, 88, and 95. And I was thinking about this since our last briefing, and I would like to provide all of those memoranda to the board if I could, so you can see what the agreements are between the cities and the county in the urban growth areas. Would you accept
It'd
that?
be beneficial for future activity.
Yeah, and there are future actions coming up, and they address a lot of things such as annexations, not just development code and consistency.
I think it would have been beneficial for the board to have had those before
Yeah,
the gentleman
you
from
can't think of
Lacey.
everything.
That's right.
True, absolutely true.
But I will
We
send
need
those
to know
to
what
you.
we're about to.
Yeah.
You guys did a lot of work, a lot of good work on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And there were items on here on the Lacey UGA where I got outvoted on, but I'm voting on this as a whole. And the work that we had, again, a lot of conversation in terms on whether, and there were several on, not just the Lacey one, but other ones where there was just disagreement between the three of us, where we had discussions about what the planning commission discussed. And but this is just kind of voting, you know, knowing that there's a democratic process that goes along with it, and knowing that, you know, even though there are items that I do not agree with particularly, but knowing that there are items on there that I do agree with, and that there was unanimous support from the planning commission as well, and knowing that we're going to be delaying all of those pieces, so that's again, just thank you all for your hard work on all of these items. And not sure, Commissioner Klaus elect Klaus, is that the only information you need, or do you need more information from staff before the vote this afternoon?
I think one more opportunity to talk with staff before the vote would be great. Thank you.
Okay. So, when we go ahead and take a break, I like around 11, you know, I'll have staff be just on standby. So, is there any other item on here besides the Lacey UGA that you have questions on?
Not anything outside of the Lacey Joint Plan section, but I do, just as a point of clarification, I understand we have to approve or reject as a whole package, and we can't take anything out and then revisit it later. But would it be possible if we decided as a board, let's say, like, as an example, we're looking at low density consolidation, if we wanted to take that piece out and vote on December 12th, would we be able to do that, take that one piece out and approve the rest on December 12th? No.
If anything comes out, it has to wait until next year's. You can only take one action on comp plan changes.
My understanding, after our discussion last week, was that if we did want to take anything out, we could hold off on the vote today and vote on December 12th. Am I misunderstanding the process?
Would be delaying the entirety of this action to December 12th. But to pull something out would be to next year.
Right, any single item.
Mm-hmm.
The board could agree to delay until December 12th.
Okay, so we could delay until December 12th, but still on December 12th, we're approving or rejecting the whole entire plan. We can't make any adjustments.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
The board could agree to pull an item off of this list, but again, you could not then take action on it this year. You would have to wait until next year and to the end of next year, because once you take an action, that's it for the year, is my understanding.
Okay, Thank
for
you.
that individual item, I think is the clarifying piece that we're missing. So you could take an action on the package that you're moving forward this year, and then whatever item is pulled out, the earliest date would be the end of 2024.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
So do we leave this on today's agenda or do
Well,
we?
yeah, I'm gonna encourage Commissioner-elect Klaus to, on break, to meet with staff to discuss, and then if there are other concerns, then at that time, we can bring the item back up and have that discussion. At this time, I'll leave it on the agenda as is, until, they can have that discussion.
Commissioner Edwards, good with that. All right.
Okay, item 5B, final action on the code change to align capital improvement program and budget process.
This item was the subject of a public hearing recently, and it aligns the capital improvement program process with budget amendment process as allowed in state law. And what the proposal before you is to allow amendments to the CIP when there is an unanticipated opportunity or an unanticipated receipt of revenue that would support a capital project. Unanticipated clearly means that we had not known about whatever the opportunity was at the time the budget was enacted. We're amending the budget and we could amend the CIP. The change in the process is to not put the CIP through the Planning Commission. This is an effort to save time and to be able to align it with the budget process so that we do not have to delay budget amendments to wait on the CIP.
I have a question.
Go ahead, sir.
It's my understanding that we operate as far as moving things through the planning commission and then to the county commission as an ordinance that we have that directs that's the process, or is it state law that directs that as the process? I thought it was laid out, either an ordinance or state law, that it doesn't matter what we're doing, it calls for, I don't know if this is eliminating an ordinance or not following a law, I'm not sure. And again, I'd rather have an attorney here, but I'd like to hear your position on why.
So we received advice from the attorneys on this subject. This is a change to a county ordinance that would allow the CIP specifically, any amendment, mid-year amendment, I'm going to say, to the CIP would not go through the Planning Commission. The annual reboot, if you will, of the CIP would still go through the Planning Commission as it does today. It's just that if we get new money like we did for the Highway 507 roundabout, that we never knew we would receive and is on a tight timeline, we would be able to amend the CIP at the time we amend the budget to receive the revenue, or when an opportunity comes up to purchase real estate, as it has in the past, where the county has a 30-day first right of refusal. There is no time to put it through the Planning Commission process. These are mid-year amendments, and our attorneys have told us that it is legal in this case to not go through the Planning Commission and to take this action.
And we do have an executive session later this morning.
Right.
So if you have additional questions, Commissioner Edwards, on this item, because we had two options listed. So,
You did, and this is the first option. The second option would be only to allow those items that come with external funding to go through the planning commission. We've presented you with option one here that preserves the board's ability to take action on something that you would fund with available funds. That is an opportunity that's time limited and unknown at the time the budget was passed.
I guess what I'm wondering is kind of similar to what we discussed this morning on the salary commission, is we've got a county ordinance that is giving us certain direction to follow. And it looks like we're going to make a change in that county ordinance. Why can't we do something similar on the salary commission? I mean, I know it's not tied together, but why can we do one but not the other? I
You
guess that's-
absolutely can make a change to the ordinance on the salary commission, but like this change in an ordinance or any other change, it takes time. You need to develop what the change is to that ordinance. It goes through a public process to change the ordinance. We've had a public hearing on this particular ordinance change that is in front of you this afternoon. I just don't think you could change the ordinance for the salary commission today.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, this allows sort of that administrative flexibility during the course of a year.
Right.
If something emerges when there is that opportunity, it gets folded into the CIP that ultimately still goes through the planning commission on that annual basis for the review as they're dealing with all of the comprehensive plan amendments.
So on this one, I mean, it sounds like we have two options to proceed.
There is a second option. You need to vote on one of them, not both, and which is why there is only one on this agenda. And the second option is to only approve the skipping the salary or the planning commission, if you will.
On the new money.
If there is new money coming
Yeah,
into the
okay.
county.
Right.
But that would preclude, so twice in the past, you've had opportunities, the purchase of Building 7 and the purchase of Mottman were opportunities that came mid-year at a point when the owner of those buildings, respectively, the owner of Building 7 had decided to sell. The owner of the Mottman complex had passed away, and his heirs decided that they did not want to keep the property. We had a very limited amount of time to make an offer, and waiting for that to go through the planning commission would not be in the best interest of the county. You would not have been able to make those purchases.
But, so we did it without following the ordinance, is that?
We did follow our ordinance. What I'm suggesting is that there are opportunities that come to you, even without new external money, that you can afford with the money you have, that you may want to act upon, where going through the planning commission would, just because of the time it takes, preclude you from doing so.
What happens when we don't follow the ordinance? Do we get beat up? We take our birthday away or
Well,
what? I mean,
there's-
because there are times that it seems like we figure out a way not to follow an ordinance. And that's kind of my concern. here.
County
It's
always follows its own ordinances, those are county laws. And if we were to not follow our own laws and be out of compliance, there are legal actions that could ensue.
Okay, so we're gonna have an option here, and it sounds like we're gonna be able to differentiate between kind of a general exception or an exception when new money comes in.
Yes.
Okay, so when will we hear the rest of that? Is that what's coming up in the
We have an executive session later this morning.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll leave that for executive session. Any questions on this item? Can Commissioner-elect Klaus participate in the executive session?
No, she may not, not until after she's sworn in.
Do you have any questions on this item, or are you comfortable with proceeding with option one, or are you more comfortable with option two?
Well, I don't fully understand the implications of, option one versus option two, but I would be in support of option one. I haven't heard anything too concerning. So I would be comfortable moving forward with option one.
Okay.
Is option one the new money or the general?
It's the general.
It's any money.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Public Health and Social Services, item 6A, Thurston County Developmental Disabilities 2024 through 2025 Community Grant Contracts.
So this item is the award of funding to local providers using developmental disability dollars that we collect through our property tax levy and dollars from the state. You have a summary in your packet. It's this one right here, Commissioner, on how the money is distributed. And if you have any questions about this item, Candace is here to answer.
And we've had several briefings on this.
You
issue,
have.
right? Yeah, okay, got it. I don't have any questions on that.
Okay. Questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Item 6B, amendment number 17 to the Washington State Department of Health, 2022 through 2024. Department of Health, consolidated contract.
This is an amendment to the consolidated contract that the county has with the Washington State Department of Health. It adds an additional $280,000 to the contract and makes amendments in language. And who do
Just
we
coming.
have? David's coming in now. Here's David. Hi, David. Please share information with the board about changes to the CONCON.
Good morning. We discussed this last week. The primary change is in a grant from the CDC through DOH that is around $200,000 that is intended to be supportive of workforce development for public health employees. And so that funding allows for us to provide additional trainings to support us in getting new hires and recruitment. And this funding, I think, was authorized starting in July of this year and goes through June of next year.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Klaus? No questions. Commissioner Edwards?
You said about 200, but it says here 280,000, is that?
Yeah, so there's other adjustments. So this is our master contract with DOH. The other 80,000 are adjustments to other pieces. Those are not new funds for us. There's just, if you add up all the other changes, you get $80,000, but this is adjustments that happen pretty frequently throughout the year from DOH. So as we get, let's see, we might get a contract with DOH and then they adjust the amount of money throughout time. They might add more, it might take away less. You're seeing a sum of all those other changes. It's a lot of small changes that add up. The bulk is that grant.
Heard you argue against new money.
Yep.
So I see that the years are still not correct on this item. It says the duration of the amendment is.
Yeah, we were working with Jamie. I think I'm getting that updated on the AIS from, I think it says last year and it should say next year.
Right. So that needs to be fixed this morning.
I'll get it changed on the break.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Public Works, item 7A. And this is following our public hearing ordinance to adopt the revised speed limit schedule for various county roads.
Yes, as stated, this item is to adopt the Thurston County speed limit schedule. You have held work sessions on this and the public hearing last week, and
We do have a follow-up conversation under committee. Do we want to wait or do we want to have it now?
that is up to you. I did list this because it's a decision that's yet to be made.
Okay, let's go ahead and have it now.
Sure.
So, pass it on to Becky unless there are questions that,
No, I'd like to hear about it and see what we can do.
So really, there wasn't any questions that staff was gonna follow up to. The big concern that we had from the hearing was, in regards to Martin Way and having that consistent, 35 mile per hour speed limit all the way through, the city of Lacey, through the county, where it kind of switches back, county, city, and it's always nice to have that consistency, so drivers know going all the way through the corridor that is 35 miles per hour. It's very similar to what we did last year with 93rd Avenue. You remember that a portion of it was owned by the state, a portion was owned by Tumwater, and then went to the county, then back to the city, then to the county again. And we lowered that to 40, so it was consistent all the way through that corridor. And Becky looked up the speed limit criteria this morning. In addition to the consistency of the speed limit, the 85th percentile speed as well as the 10 mile per hour pace speed supports that speed limit adjustment as well.
questions?
No questions.
Go ahead. I might have a question after you get done digging into it.
I was wondering, Martin Way was one of the ones we heard about. But I know that, I know Martin Way is really checker-pieced as well between the county and Lacey, but there's also parts of Olympia, and so I'm wondering, is Olympia also following, well, right at the beginning, and then it's County Lacey?
Olympia is kind of different because I believe it's less than 35.
I think they lowered it 25.
To 25, but I
Part of
mean,
their
the signals
section.
are so close together and there's so many pedestrians. It's kind of a different natured road once you get into the city of Olympia. So this would just basically make it, hey, once you get outside city limits, I shouldn't say city limits because city of Lacey, outside city of Olympia limits, it'll be 35 all the way to Meridian before you go down the hill.
I was gonna ask something else and then.
Let me raise one other issue while you're thinking of that.
Yeah, go ahead.
How does that work if one of the proposed changes, we weren't quite there yet? Can we strike that and go ahead with the rest?
Yeah, that is your prerogative to move forward with some
Okay.
and not others.
Good enough, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, this is what he said. The 4 months of construction he's wondering if that's when we did our survey where it would affect the traffic study, and so.
I actually talked to him after about that too. When we do our traffic studies, we are really conscious of what's going on, and this one was held in 2022 before the work was done out there.
Okay.
I went back and checked that, but yeah, we wouldn't ever do a speed study during a time when there was construction or something else that would affect the speed.
So, once you had that conversation with him, I'm wondering kind of his thoughts on it, if you can share that.
He didn't indicate one way or the other.
One way or
He
another.
understood that, and he said he was still very for Meridian when
Mhm.
pedestrian changes were happening.
So while you're thinking, Commissioner Edwards, you can't leave us hanging like that.
Well, there's always things that, you know, pop up, that's all.
He's still not gonna give it to us.
Which one?
I don't, I'm just not there yet. I'm pretty much there, but there was one issue that was brought up that.
I will also say that we recently conducted a Martin Way corridor study out there along there, which was a regional study with all the jurisdictions and TRPC. And a lot of it was centered around the speed out there and those kind of things. And there is even potentially pedestrian improvements that are going to be made out on Martin Way as well, which this would support that as well.
If I could expand a little bit on that, is that the next phase that TRPC is going to be working on is to install mid-block crossings on the Martin Way corridor, because the only protected crossings currently are at the signals. And so what that means is people take unnecessary risks trying to cross 5 lanes of traffic at let's be honest, it's quicker than 40 miles an hour. And so that this proposed 35-mile-per-hour speed limit would support those crossings as well.
And one of my concerns about that is that over on Yelm Highway, where we put those, we tried to be nice and put in crosswalks to make everything safer, and then the darn light burns out through no fault of our own, and then all of a sudden now we're on the liability end of the stick because we tried to solve a problem and we actually created a problem for our liability situation. So that's just, I know you guys are trying to balance it all out. I know that, but it doesn't always work out that way. And I wish the law wasn't quite the way it is, but it is what it is, and we're kind of stuck, so.
It's a tough state.
Yeah, so, anyway. Oh, you guys, I like what you're doing. I appreciate everything you're doing.
He did receive one additional.
Oh, yeah, I did receive one additional public comment out on Case Extension Road, which we didn't have any public comment on that day. But he emailed after he wasn't able to make the public hearing, and he supports lowering the speed limit. They would like to see it lower than the 40 that we're proposing. But based on our study, that is what we can propose at this time.
Okay.
I'm probably there.
Yeah. Any concerns, questions? No questions. Okay, thank you.
So, we will take action on this afternoon? Okay, sure.
Maybe.
Show up just in case.
Yeah. Thank you, commissioners.
Oh, he'll be here.
Okay, item 7B is right-of-way dedication resolution, Little Rock Road and 113th Avenue Southwest Bridge and intersection improvements.
Yes, this item has right away that is dedicated to these two projects. And we have Craig on the screen and Matt's here too, to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Craig, anything you'd like to add?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Questions? No questions.
No questions, thanks.
Okay, no questions for me. Item C, you have a public hearing, might as well just stay here, Matt. Lease renewal with Kaufman Real Estate LLC.
Yes, this final item on your agenda this afternoon is to renew the lease that we have with Kaufman Real Estate, and I believe that this is for a storage area, and Ryan can tell you more about it.
Brian?
Morning, Commissioners. Yes, so this is a lease space we've occupied since 2018 with Kaufman Real Estate, and we store our closed circuit TV camera trucks, some boats, supplies, materials, things of that nature at this location.
Thank you. Any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Then we will review our standing items. We do have a public hearing at 3:30. So if we're not done with our regular agenda, we will be pausing to do the public hearing. And this is a public hearing to consider the transfer of portions of county roads to the Confederate Tribes of the Chinese Reservation.
Yes, and this item is as it states, it transfers a section of county roads to the Chehalis tribe. The board has been considering this action for many years. You have received, you've had briefings, staff have been working with the tribe. I believe that all of the necessary assessments have been done, and we are now going to take public comment on this item before you move to actually transfer the property to the tribe. I believe that there was a legal question raised about the legality of transferring this road to the tribe. We've received legal advice that in regard to the state law that says the county must receive fair value for property that we transfer to another entity, which, by the way, does include the tribes, that fair value can be non-monetary, and for this particular road, the fact that the county will no longer be responsible for repairs and maintenance of the road and have cost avoidance in the future is sufficient to meet the requirements of the state law. So with that,
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of my key talking points too, is that, and the other, to add on to that, we're not vacating the right of way. We're just transferring the operational and maintenance responsibilities to the Chehalis tribe. And with that, we can take back those roadways if they don't meet the terms of the agreement at any time. So I think that's one of the common themes that we've been receiving as well. So that was the one, and just to preface this, so far we've received 5 comments and only 1 opposes the transfer that we've received in Public Works. The other one pertains to the closure of 188th. You may remember that, was it 3 or 4 years ago, we went through a pretty extensive process to close 188th Avenue so that there's only one primary access, and that's Anderson Road, to get to the casino and the tribal community center and their surrounding communities. The important thing to recognize is that's just a temporary closure. If we were to continue to maintain that roadway, we would have to reevaluate that in 10 years. So that's not a permanent closure in place. I did reach out to the tribe this morning to see what their plans were, and they have no plans of, if the transfer did indeed go through and was agreed upon today, they have no plans of removing that closure. And I think the Washington State Department of Transportation would have some pretty strong comments if that closure were to be removed, because you will remember the reason that closure was put in is it was put in lieu of putting a roundabout at US 12 and Moon Road. So there would be some pretty significant safety concerns if that closure was removed.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions.
Yeah, it seems to me that was originally negotiated with the state to save them putting a roundabout in.
You're absolutely right.
And then they kind of reneged on us on the Sargent Road right away. They kind of pulled out, where we thought we were gonna have a benefit coming in, is that right?
You're correct. We didn't receive the money, all the money that was promised to us for the Sergeant roundabout. They did contribute some in-kind services, but yes, you're correct.
I have 2 questions on the comment about the gifting of public funds. Mm-hmm. Are tribes called out specifically the same as say, Port of Olympia or City of Olympia as far as
Fed-
a municipality? Is that
Yes.
covered?
Federal, state, tribes,
So they
other
fall under
local
the federal
jurisdictions.
portion of it? Is
No,
that it?
they are specifically called out in the state law as entity that can receive property from a municipality,
Okay.
including
And-
the county.
And then, what's the issue with the one gentleman that says if you give up the road, he owns to the center of the road or something like that? Has that been solved?
Yes, I reached out to our county surveyor as well as our real estate services manager, and we do have we have a prescriptive right, but we also have a waiver for the roadway to go across his property.
And when you say a waiver, does that mean we've got a legal document or something that some prior landowner of
It's
that
my understanding
property
we do.
signed off on? And so we keep that in the archives to counter some claim like that?
It's my understanding we do have a legal document, and I'll reach out and confirm that after this meeting.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
All right.
So then that will conclude our agenda for November 28th. It is 11:07.
Your permission, Madam Chair, we do have a guest with us today, Lisa Parks from City Manager of the City of Tumwater, who is here at our request to give information to the board about the coming plans for the brewery district. If it's all right with you, could we move to her so that she can get on with her day?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that then.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm here at Robin's request to answer any questions you might have about the City of Tumwater's process around brewery redevelopment. I can start by answering questions, or I can just give you a brief update to get started.
Let's go with the brief update and then we'll move it to questions.
Sure. So the City of Tumwater has been long pulling every thread available to try and move the brewery property into some form of beneficial reuse. We have not yet been successful, but we continue to have threads presented to us and we are moving forward with those. Most recently, the city received an EPA grant in the amount of $500,000 that will allow us to do some environmental characterization on the brewery properties. That grant also allows us to do some additional environmental characterization on other properties in the general vicinity of the brewery, including the WashDOT headquarters property that's been currently vacant, that is on Capitol Boulevard in the Trosper Road area. So we were successful in getting that grant from the federal EPA. We also received a grant, notification of a grant from Department of Ecology for an integrated planning grant in the amount of $200,000 to help us with the WashDOT environmental characterization. So we are planning on moving forward with those activities to the degree that we are allowed to have access. We are working with a local property owner and are in regular contact with him about options to purchase the property from the brewery property from the current landowner, and doing what we can to help facilitate that process.
Which side?
In this case, it would be south of Custer. So on the valley side, the warehouse side of Custer is the primary property that we're currently working with. The property that is the historic brewery property, including the brew tower that the city owns, is owned by a separate property owner that we're also talking to in terms of options. But generally speaking, the city's goal, I would characterize the city's goal as being two pieces. One is to try and get ownership of the larger property to the south into some local control, local hands in whatever way, shape, or form, whether that's private investor or to the degree that there can be some form of a partnership of public or nonprofit entities. So if we can gain control of the property from a local perspective. But the number 2 priority and goal at this point in time is to figure out what the actual environmental contamination is or may be, and if it exists. There's a perception that there's environmental contamination, and without really understanding fully what that environmental contamination may be, there's a lot of risk and liability, both for a public ownership or a partnership or a private entity taking ownership of that property. In the state of Washington, under our environmental laws, a liability for pollution ultimately ends up with the person that created the pollution in the first place. But the first line of liability goes to whomever actually owns the property at the time, whether that's entity caused the pollution or not. So it's really important to understand before you take on a property like that, what the potential contamination might be, whether that's groundwater contamination, soil contamination, or some form of building or infrastructure contamination that exists, whether that's asbestos or lead or the like. So we are working with the local property owners I mentioned. We're talking with South Sound YMCA about options for partnering with them for use of the warehouse portion of that building. The legislature in this last session adopted a new statute that Representative Dolio was pretty proactive in promoting that would allow for a potential public facilities district to be formed where one already exists, which is the case of Thurston County. And in that case, it would be a process that would allow for a limited purpose public facilities district as an option if there were an aquatic center or indoor sports fields or courts. So that's an option that we're looking at. And so characterizing it as pulling threads is accurate, we believe, in terms of trying to find some opportunity and any opportunity and pulling it to its fruition, good or bad, to try and get that property into a beneficial reuse.
Questions?
No questions.
I think all my questions have been answered along with what Robin came up with the other day about this wasn't gonna affect, you know,
public
by
facility
renewing,
district.
we were wondering where we were at.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, and appreciate that consideration. You know, the city of Tumwater is actively looking for whatever opportunity we can to move forward. And the option for this limited purpose public facilities district legislation that was presented and adopted in this last state legislative session is very beneficial potentially for the larger community, and particularly as it may apply to the brewery property, so.
And it would have to be something that's done countywide, so we would have to prove that.
Not necessarily. If there were a future public facilities district, it would not have to be a countywide. With the action that you took last week to approve the current public facilities district was set up as a countywide, including the cities of Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater, because that was the facilities that were funded had countywide impact.
Yeah.
But that option is not available to us in the future.
So the way I understand the legislation is, the new legislation, is that it's very similar to the current one with a couple of exceptions. Where it is similar is that any jurisdiction that is choosing to be a part of this has to go through a process where it's put before the vote. So if the county and Tumwater were looking to partner on this limited purpose public facilities district, we would have to have a series of agreements. We would have to have, each of the elected bodies would have to take action to put it on the ballot, et cetera, et cetera. So there are, anytime there would be a partnership like that, the obligation to put it before the voters and have a good, solid conversation and direction would have to take place with whichever entities would choose to participate. The reality is, redeveloping the brewery property for just about any use is going to be a costly proposition. If not because of the environmental cleanup, but because of, in some cases, those properties are flood-prone areas and impacted the Deschutes River need to be considered. And so there's a lot of work to do, but I think if a public facilities district for this limited purpose were to be formed, it would likely need to take that cooperative participation on multiple entities' perspective. And so it would require a lot of partnership from the get-go.
And it would require a vote of the people because it would be a new tax. The current public facilities district is an offset of the sales tax that goes to the state of Washington. That would not be the case with this new one.
Correct.
What's the estimated revenue?
I don't know that we've gotten to that point. I have, I believe the Y has looked at that, but I haven't had a chance to talk to Kyle Cronk most recently to get his numbers. Essentially, I believe the legislation would allow us up to 0.2% of sales tax. So whatever your estimate was for Prop 1 this year is probably similar, if it were countywide.
So I'm guessing it would have to be bonded out in a way too.
Public facilities districts, the legislation allows you to use the revenue as security for bonding, absolutely.
We bond it.
Bond it, that's kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
At least we're at least a year, if not a few years out.
Yes, anytime you put something before the voters and ask them to spend hard-earned dollars, you need to, have a solid plan. And we've got some really good conceptual plans. There's a lot of devil in the details, however, so a lot of feasibility, not the least of which is understanding the environmental contamination, so we understand what the cleanup obligation will be. Yes, so I believe the way the new legislation is set up, if there were to be a public facilities district implemented under the new legislation, I believe by June of 2025, there has to be a letter of agreement amongst the entities that would be participating. So we do have some time. If that becomes an option and we are approaching our thread pulling from an iterative standpoint, so as we begin to understand more about the contamination, we can begin looking at the various opportunities once we get to resolution on some of those contamination issues.
yeah, and I believe we've had conversations with Mr. Cronk about his plans, and I think for me the piece, and one thing I've heard from the community is community pools and the need for an aquatic facility in Thurston County. And the accessibility of it. I know that he's, really working on those pieces and how to provide that accessibility. So, keep us involved in the conversation as you move through with this. It's great that you've gotten grants to be able to do that environmental piece of things. But, if it's something where, I don't see it being fruitful without a countywide public facilities district really is kind of my point. So I guess just keep us in the conversation, and keep us involved. I know that there is interest from the board on something like this, but, I think if we're kept in that conversation, at least we can keep tabs on it and also help with the communication piece of it to our voters.
Yes, absolutely. You have my personal commitment to do that. And I think it's really important that again, asking people to pay more is a difficult ask, and you better be able to answer the questions and make sure that everybody can answer the question the same, whether it's you getting asked the question or Mayor Sullivan getting answered the question. Absolutely. The city of Olympia and the city of Tumwater have done a cooperative aquatic center, the feasibility of and desirability of a regional aquatic center, and there is a lot of interest with that. I concur with you on that point. And so there's a lot of foundational work that's already gone into this particular thread for that brewery property. And Kyle has done a lot of work and we're appreciative of that. Some of that has been cooperative also with the city of Tumwater. And you can't have too much information going into a potential proposition such as this. So absolutely happy to keep you informed and come back and answer any questions at any time.
Any additional questions? No?
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming in.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So our agenda for, or our meeting for December 5th, 2023 is canceled. So we will not be having, we'll be having budget public hearings at that time. Yay us. Picking back up with the budget. But next is proclamations and awards. We'll go ahead and take a little break and then we'll come back and continue on with our agenda. Okay, we are back from break. It is 11:45 and we left off with proclamations and awards and advisory boards and commissions.
Good morning, Jamie Caldwell for the board. For proclamations and awards, I know that the prosecuting attorney's office is working on the draft for Marshall's Day for issuance on the 12th, so I'll get you a copy of that as soon as it's available. For the boards and commissions, the outstanding reappointment requests have been included in your packet for review. It's just for the planning commission at the moment. I did receive one more yesterday from Eric Casino that I'll have in your packet for next week for review. He is also an applicant that is being redistricted once we have the full expansion of the board here, and he'll be moving from District 3 to District 5, so you'll see that on your list as well. Outside of any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you. Is that who your at-large appointment is going to be, Commissioner Edwards?
Would be,
Mr. Casino?
I thought that it was gonna be up to
Well, yeah.
whatever district he was going if somebody was.
Well, you have you said you were
Barry-
staying with yours,
I was
and,
gonna stay with mine, Barry.
but then you also have an at-large appointment.
Yeah, I have them large on it. I just don't know
Who?
who's gonna pick who, so I would consider that for sure.
Okay. Okay. So we'll be having that discussion later in December. So are there any questions for Jamie, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Okay, next is PIO check-in.
Center Roads Public Information Officer, and I don't have any updates at this time.
Thank you. Okay, legislative check-in.
So this item was to be a final review of the legislative priorities. To have them ready for next Tuesday morning, but I see that the blurb on a meat packing plant is not on this list. We'll get that added today and it'll be available to you tomorrow for final review.
Thank you. And thank you, Jenica, for obtaining the information for that. Okay,
Travis is available. He'll be logging in a moment for your exec session.
perfect. Any questions about legislative check-in? Okay. And then anything else that we have, the recruitment of county manager, could you give a quick update on that?
Yes, we have, I forget how many, I was told the number of applicants available. Maria is recommending that we have review of the current applicants to see if we have a sufficient pool to move forward to interviews. And we'd like to know which of the county commissioners would like to be involved. We're hoping to have 2 commissioners to be involved in the review of the applicants. And we would probably schedule the review for what would have been the winter break.
Okay, and then can we get, we'll discuss later, at a later date, who the 2 commissioners will be for the application or for the interview process, but can all the applicant information be sent to all commissioners, please?
So you would all like to review all applicants rather than have a, that's what I'm asking.
Well, I think so. I think we, and we can choose 2 main people to be the main ones, but I think all commissioners should get at least a review process of the applicants, and they can submit whether they have any recommendations to the 2 main people, but.
Thank you for coming in. So the commissioners would all like to receive all applications for county manager.
How many so far?
23.
Okay,
23?
that's good.
All right.
And do you want them printed or email?
Emailed for me is fine, but I know Commissioner Edwards would like his printed.
I think initially, I don't know why printed.
Printed is,
Okay.
yeah.
But-
So
Yes, but-
all 5 commissioners and me, please.
Okay. Anything else?
Great. So I was suggesting the 2 commissioners work with you and I on a application review committee, but they would all like to be involved So yes.
You had mentioned, can I?
Yeah.
You had mentioned doing some training on serial meetings in the Open Public Meetings Act. Since we're going to 5, and this would be one place where it would be wrought with peril, not having that requisite knowledge and training.
So Thursday morning, that'll be the first thing we do Thursday morning is Jane and Elizabeth will come and do a training on the OPMA, and they'll focus on the serial meeting aspect.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
So we'll do that. We'll distribute those, and then I was suggesting that we would schedule a day probably during the week of December 18th for application review and to come to a consensus on whether or not we have sufficient applicants to move forward to the interview process, which will take place in January.
Do you want the first batch? So when we posted the job, we indicated we would be doing an initial candidate review on December 1st. So do you want?
Everyone who's applied at this point in time.
At this point, okay. Get that to you then.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and move into executive session because we do have a time crunch, so Emily and Wayne will step out, please.
You know what? What?
Just about
Hey,
everything. Good job.
Before they leave, when are they getting sworn in?
Emily's getting sworn in at 12:45 after
Oh,
the.
I thought right at noon or something was happening.
12:15, we have to be done, so the canvassing board can meet.
Okay. I was just thinking, if we're 10 minutes away from getting sworn in, they might as well, we wait 10 minutes to go into the executive.
No, we have to have an official canvassing board meeting.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Did you announce it?
Not yet. Okay, so we are going to executive session per RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to the agency enforcement actions, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. Code change to align capital improvement program and budget. And this session will take approximately, I'll say 15 minutes, and then we can expand if needed. Okay, we are back from executive session per RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency code change to align capital improvement program and budget. It is 12:14, and no commissioner's action follows. With that, the only thing left is the status of equal employment opportunity plan. I'm gonna ask for that to be continued on to our next agenda. If there is
December
space.
12th.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, with that, it is 12:14, we are adjourned.